Oh God, it's here. It's my big chance. The intro animation has just ended and it's down to me, John Idarola, to give the official TYT rebuttal. Okay, get it together. If you nail this, you could be the vice president. Drop it. Welcome one and all to the Power Panel on TYT. I'm John Idarola, but much more importantly, Francesca Fiorentini, Maz Jobrani, both of you, welcome to the show.
Thank you, that was incredible, John. I mean, it could have been a little breathier.
I know,
but it was really good.
No, but I do have to be, look, it's either because I'm that much of a method actor or that I really need to do more cardio. I'm kind of out of breath from that, actually. So I understand how she was feeling, is all I'm saying. Maz, how have you been?
I have been well, and I enjoy watching people try to perform like she was, and it's always fun. You know, the people who are on stage and in front of audiences, I think after a while we think like everybody can do it, and then when you see somebody who's doing like bad acting, yeah, you go, okay, not everybody can do it. So it kind of makes you feel pretty good. I mean, you know, it was a little bit of Schadenfreude. I mean, I felt bad for her, but it was just nice to see her be like, you know, yeah, the country is falling apart. You know, just like the way she was, it was fantastic.
Yeah. What I enjoy is you take a whole bunch of different policies and positions, some of them serious, some of them not, and then you take a whole bunch of emotional states, and then you just combine them totally at random. No connection between the topic and the emotional state. But anyway, why are we getting ahead of ourselves? We're gonna clearly be talking about that coming up on the show once I get my breath, but not just that. Breaking news, Lara Trump finally got the job that she has been working towards her whole life and has been accruing all of the experience one needs to serve as the head of the RNC. We'll have that for you. Legal updates on Donald Trump and more. What is a passport, bro? Stay tuned and we might get to it. But with all that said, those of you watching live, thank you for being here. We got a great hour planned for you, a great second hour as well. Please hit that like button, and with no more ado, let's jump into this.
Y'all, you can't make this stuff up. Look, we all recall when presidents faced national security threats with strength and resolve. That seems like ancient history. Right now, our commander-in-chief is not in command. The free world deserves better than a dithering and diminished leader.
Dear God, it was like some ancient witch started to take over her soul as that went on. Whew. Okay, that's Katie Britt giving the official response to the State of the Union. And as you could, I'm thinking, clearly tell from that video, she was chosen for a couple of reasons. One, she's a big up and comer in the party with vice presidential aspirations. And two, she can go from folksy smile to boring a hole through your skull with her eyes in about 2 to 3 seconds. But anyway, there's more, including way more different emotional states. Take a look.
I never could have imagined what my story would entail. To think about what the American dream can do. Mr. President, enough is enough. Innocent Americans are dying, and you only have yourself to blame. It's been a minute since Joe Biden pumped gas, ran a carpool, or even pushed a grocery cart. We hear you. And we stand with you. I know you're frustrated.
Look, there's a lot going on there. And honestly, I'm gonna say that watching that, I don't think I should do that. I have the weird lib thing where I naturally try to empathize with the people that I see, and I have a sort of mirroring of their emotions, and that is just too much of a roller coaster ride. Why is she winking? Why is she talking like this all of a sudden? Why are you standing with me so weirdly close to me? Look, there's clearly a lot going on, and I'm not a huge fan, although it was fun, I guess, for a while. Republicans also not huge fans, and we're gonna get to some of of their criticism of that rebuttal. But first, Francesca, I saw some of your live reaction to it with your husband on Instagram. Yes. What do you make of it now with a little bit of time,
It doesn't age well upon third viewing. It is still just as, what are you trying to do? Who is this for? Why are you in a kitchen that doesn't feel like a real kitchen? Again, I don't know if she is trying to break off from the Moms for Liberty group and start a new group. I don't know if she's actually a sitting senator. I don't know if she is doing an acting course, and this is her very first monologue, and she's trying to crush it. There are a million things, but this very fragile state of, I'm about to cry, I'm about to laugh, but mostly I'm psychotic, and this is my parking space. This is the most, to quote Dr. Ritchie, the Karenicity on the brink of a breakdown that I've seen, and I guess that's what you want out of a political party?
It looked like a commercial for an antidepressant medication.
100%.
Right? Are you feeling, traumatized and desperate and alone and you don't know what to do? Mr. President, I want you to help me. I'm gonna take my pills and feel better, or whatever the pill is. Don't they audition these people? This was your chance to put your Bulldog, your pit bulls, your Marjorie Taylor Greens, your Lauren Boebers, your Jim Jordans, who are just as nutty. This is your chance to put one of those screamers in front of the audience and just have them scream and be like, at least you'd be like, at least Republicans would be like, that's what I'm talking about. Versus this poor lady. I mean, it was so bad. It was sad. And by the way, if you look at all the policies and all these things that they blame him for, all you got to do, if they come at you with any of this stuff, all you got to do is go, look, there was a border bill that you guys tanked. So you're talking about all this stuff. You tanked the border bill. So don't be blaming Joe when you weren't able to pass something that was going to solve 90% of these problems that you're talking about, or at least start to solve these problems. So, even on the actual policies, it was totally empty.
Yeah, 100%. And you said, don't they audition people? What I was wondering is I just imagine her she's prepped at home. She sits down. She's like, should we do a run through? And the stage manager's like, no, you got it, whatever. No, you got to do a run through, or have someone in your ears this is all super weird, all the stuff you're doing. Could you please stop doing? You're making Mark Zuckerberg look like a human, okay? Just imitate people you've seen on TV. And look, I said that we're gonna get to the Republican reactions, and we are. But before we do that, I wanna show you one more video. This is not from her rebuttal. This is a social media clip to promote her rebuttal. And I want you to take a look at the stark difference in this.
Hey y'all, Katie Britt here. I am looking forward to delivering the Republican response to the State of the Union. So tune in. See you soon.
That's a human in that video. That is a person who's just talking. She's not wildly swinging from one extreme to another. She's not desperately trying to give some sort of weird version of gravitas or seriousness about the border. She's just talking like a person. And deep down inside, I'm sure there is a person. But unfortunately, she has ambitions and she has aspirations, and this is what the political system does to people. It turns them into these bizarre robots. So anyway, look, we've all been critical, but it's not just us. Charlie Kirk said, I'm sure she's a sweet mom in person, but this speech is not what we need. Joe Biden just declared war on the American right, and Katie Britt is talking like she's hosting a cooking show, whispering about how Democrats don't get it. There were a lot of anonymous responses reaching out to different news sites. One Trump advisor said, what the hell am I watching right now? Creepy, a Republican pollster said. One lawyer working in the Trump orbit said that the performance reminded them of public access television. A senior House congressional aide on the Republican side remarked that it was cringe-inducing and likely destined to be turned into a lame SNL skit. I just want to know who is going to be playing her on that.
Or can they beat her? Who can do it better than she can?
It might not. One Republican staffer said it gives a high school freshman speech. She really thinks she's killing it, but it's comical, like SNL quality. First of all, people love to just crap all over SNL. Some of the skits are good. Anyway, radio host Jesse Kelly wrote that it's not what he'd prefer out of the GOP response. quote, but there's no question Katie Britt has mastered the ultimate weapon of dimes everywhere. The fake cry, that's a seasoned pro right there. So that's not great either as a take, but there was one person who liked it, or at least is pretending to like it on social media. He said online, Katie Britt was a great contrast to a capital A, angry and obviously very disturbed president. She was compassionate and caring, especially concerning women and women's issues. Her conversation on migrant crime was powerful and insightful. Great job, Katie. And it's pretty clear from that why she was chosen or what her mission was supposed to be. Bearing in mind that Donald Trump wanted to be the one to give the rebuttal himself. They said not to have that. They're putting her in instead. She's under consideration to be VP. They clearly think that they can like win over women or something. And some of them are not even as nuanced in talking about that mission as Donald Trump. Tommy Tuberville said, like he was a little bit critical of it, but he said she wasn't really there to be a senator. She was there to be a mom, like a housewife or whatever. So that's what she's doing. She's a senator. She's been a lawyer for years and years. She was a comms director for the previous senator. She's not a housewife. Housewives are real things. You could have a housewife if you wanted them to deliver the rebuttal. She is a professional working woman who's worked for many, many years. So either he knows that, in which case he knows that the mission is for her to like cosplay being a housewife or something, or he doesn't know that and screw her many years of both public service and private service. She's always just gonna be a housewife to him and to the other Republicans. I don't know exactly which it is, Francesca, what do you think?
Well, I mean, that's the irony of the entire thing is that she herself, I mean, she's part of where she's going to be delivering this rebuttal, and she was in, I guess, her kitchen. It kind of seems like a set, but she was there. I mean, that was a choice to say, I just look like a regular old lady who's selling you, or mom who's, yeah, selling you some antacids, and for your problem of border migrants, like coming across, and like she said the word rape like 5 times in the first 5 minutes. Like, it's just ridiculous. So again, like, and this is my broader point about Republican women in this party, that even though she is an accomplished senator, I guess, in her own right, that part of her selling the Republican Party is selling the second-class citizenship or the sort of housebound housewife identity of women. She's from Alabama at the same time that Alabama lawmakers are taking away the right to have a family via IVF because the right of a zygote is more important, right? She didn't talk anything about that. So speaking of, talking about the crime on the border, what about the crimes being committed against women in this very country? So we'll see if this is enough to get suburban women, a lot of whom are losing the thread on the Republicans because of abortion rights. But it's just, again, it's a pretty sick way to sell this case to women.
Yeah, I would say, John, the clip you showed of her promoting the upcoming rebuttal, based on that, if I were coaching her, I would say, listen, let's not, because it looks like she was probably reading from a teleprompter, and that makes you even more nervous, and she's got to hit everything, and she might even had in parentheses like cry, smile. It might have been that etched out. And if I were directing her, I'd say, listen, let's just do bullet points. Hit the point, move on to the next bullet point, hit the point, because it was just, they put her out there to really fail. And to Francesca's point with women in the Republican Party, and they're trying to win over women by saying, oh, look, a woman gave our rebuttal. The truth is, I was looking at Nikki Haley not being chosen to be the nominee on the Republican side. Yes, number one, she was battling MAGA and Trump. But number two, and I think just as important, if not maybe more important, is MAGA Republicans and maybe Republicans in general would never vote for a woman to be president. So you might sit there and put as many women as you want to do the rebuttals, but they see you as a second-class citizen. They're not gonna accept you. You're not a leader. You need to be in the kitchen. You're a housewife. The same way they try to play with people of color when Donald Trump photoshops black people around him, they would never vote for a black person to be their nominee. It's not gonna happen. It ain't gonna happen. And so you can do as much as you want to say, oh, we welcome everybody, but they don't and they won't. And if you're a sucker, you're enough of a sucker to vote for them, then you lose.
Yeah, and look, the idea that if you want to be an elected Republican, as a lot of different people of different sorts want to be, but unfortunately, there's not a lot of different Republican parties. There's one, and it's misogynistic and racist and Islamophobic and homophobic and all of those things. But some people who are part of those groups that most Republicans have no respect for are conservative. So they're put in this really uncomfortable situation. And I have some empathy for that situation. But Katie Britt is obviously a willing tool in continuing all of those hierarchies, not only in being a senator or giving the rebuttal. She wants to be Trump's VP, never forget that. And that's where I'm gonna set aside the jokes for just a second, because it's easy to make fun of her and it feels good, and I'm glad that we did it. But she's also a senator and a truly horrible, dishonest person. And that's where the stuff that she said in that gets kind of serious, because she went on at length about human traffickers raping women. And she said all of that to attack Joe Biden. She went on at length about gang rapes of women and how horrific it is, so that Joe Biden would lose to the guy she wants to win, Donald Trump, who a judge found was a rapist. Okay, so she loves to use the idea of rape as a political weapon, as she is supporting a rapist for office. And by the way, I want to just mention something that I saw Shannon Watts mention on Twitter, which is in that absolutely horrific example that you gave, Katie Britt, of a woman being gang raped by human traffickers, an unthinkable tragedy. Let's say she gets pregnant during that. What should happen to her, Katie Britt? I think we all know what you think should happen. She should raise the baby of one of those rapists for literally decades. That's what you think should happen. And small fact check, Francesca, you mentioned that she didn't mention IVF. In her speech, she did briefly mention IVF, and she said that they would support it. But when I heard that, I had just listened to Joe Biden's speech. And when he mentioned them enshrining IVF rights, no Republican clapped, no Republican stood up. And it was just a few days ago that they shot down a chance to actually do that. The thing that she's giving a speech about, they did not do in the Senate. And I don't remember her doing a whole round of appearances in the media about how that was utterly unacceptable. And there's a reason for that, because she believes that life begins at fertilization. For political purposes, she is pretending to support IVF, but it fundamentally goes against her actual ideology. And finally, as Maz pointed out, most of that speech was demonizing about the border. And many, many Republicans have been utterly hypocritical about the border, claiming it's an invasion and a crisis on the one hand, while helping to kill it on the other hand. But she is arguably worse than most of them, because she had a direct hand in writing the bill, thinking this is great, we're gonna do this, it's a crisis down there. Oh, Donald Trump doesn't want this? Well, screw the whole thing. But I'm still gonna talk about the border as if I think it's some sort of big deal, not a deal we need to do anything about for the next year or so. So look, was she emotional and weird and strange and breathy and it's ASMR? Yes, 100%. But she is just as bad as all the rest of them on policy, arguably worse than some. Final thoughts?
No, I will just say that I think on the border bill, I am not in favor of what I think is ultimately a right-wing bill, and as you pointed out, sponsored and supported by Republicans itself, because ultimately the way to actually protect people from being trafficked is to have border policies that put human beings first and not enforce and come down on them and treat them like criminals, which they are not, by and large are not. Otherwise, you will inevitably lead to coyote trafficking, human trafficking, and on and on and on, which actually happens within this country as well. So that's the last point I want to put on. But I think that's really important to remember. She helped write this bill.
Yeah, and I'll piggyback on that by saying, as much as we laugh and have fun with her performance, these people make you laugh because they're so ridiculous, but they're also dangerous. It's the same thing with a lot of Trump stuff. You watch him and he's mumboing stuff up and jumboing stuff up. They're actually dangerous people who are supported by a far right-wing agenda that wants to take away women's rights, LGBTQ rights, people of color's rights, immigrant rights. They're really, I mean, they do want a handmaid's tale. And so beyond laughing at them, we really got to wake up and fight them in the elections. We got to fight them in the courts and make sure that our rights are not taken away.
100%. Well, look, I know we're getting on, but I want to talk about one other topic really quick. I'm gonna lay this out a little bit, get your reactions. We've been focusing mostly on Katie Britt because, of course, Cenk Uygur did his response to the State of the Union last night. But there's one section we need to give you an update on, starting with this.
We have two ways to go. Republicans can cut Social Security and give more tax breaks to the wealthy. That's the proposal. Oh no, you guys don't want another $2 trillion tax cut? I kind of thought that's what your plan was. Well, that's good to hear. You're not going to cut another $2 trillion for the super wealth. That's good to hear.
I love Mike Johnson in the background shaking his head. Oh, look at Joe going on. Yeah, we like giving tax cuts to the uber wealthy only because we did it under Reagan and George W. Bush and also Donald Trump, but we're totally gonna do it if he gets back in office. They're so utterly fake. But the message was heard loud and clear. Joe Biden was saying we should have the rich pay their fair share. And the rich, it turns out, were listening and they didn't like that section. And we're gonna give you their responses. Jeff Green is a real estate billionaire who said, I don't agree with the idea of just singling out people because of how much they have or don't have. Well, in this case, he's targeting the people who have a lot, literally billions of dollars. You're a billionaire. You have a lot, that's what he's singling out. That guy has previously talked about how there's this jealousy towards the uber wealthy. So I guess we're expecting them to pay more than 3 or 4% of taxes in a year because we're jealous of them. He says the progressive income tax, I understand, though he argued that tax rates have grown out of control. You have to leave incentives for people who are the ones who are going to create the jobs for all those people trying to climb the ladder. Evidently, the incentive to become and stay a billionaire is not enough for this guy. He's got higher aspirations than billions of dollars. And he also says, it's really difficult to even say how much money some of us have. People speculate about my net worth. I don't think I can tell you what my net worth is. I have a bunch of assets that are artwork and real estate. I mean, do I know every day what it's worth? And I would argue that if you're gonna tell us that we should not be thinking hard about possibly taxing you more, your rebuttal should not be, I don't even know how rich I am, man. I got all these paintings and I honestly forgot I had a castle. I just don't get out there more than once a decade. I think you could probably bear the taxes. Anyway, he offered alternative solutions. So he's not just criticizing Joe Biden, he has an alternate plan. So don't tax. He says you could raise the age of Social Security eligibility. My kids who are 10, 12, 14, you could tell them, you know what? When you retire, you're gonna get money at 70, not 65. Do you think they're gonna care? Maybe not. Their dad's a billionaire, you psychopath. I'm not worried about them, I'm worried about regular people. And his response to, hey, maybe you could pay more than 8% income taxes is, no, make the poors grind it out for another half decade. That's a better solution to me, a billionaire. Your concern is noted. We have this grocery billionaire who says, I think it sounds like President Biden doesn't want a capitalist government. He wants a government for socialism, and socialism doesn't work. Ask the people in Russia, ask the people in Cuba, ask the people in Venezuela. I mean, arguably, I heard from Tucker Carlson that the people in Russia love it, that they're killing it. Did you know how good the bread is there? Anyway, he goes on to say you're trying to take away the incentives for people to work hard. He is literally a billionaire. And then billionaire investor Leon Cooperman, who I know Anna Kasparian will definitely appreciate this, said that Biden's proposals amount to a version of tax and spend, where they don't tackle the real problem. The real problem is excess spending. Bearing in mind, of course, that government spending benefits people who don't already have billions of dollars. Weird that the billionaire thinks that's the problem. Maz, I wanna go to you first. What do you think about the billionaire tiers?
Well, their reactions are proof that trickle-down economics does not work. Because the idea of trickle-down economics was they make money and then everybody else makes money. The problem is when these billionaires make money, they don't give the money to everybody else. They go and buy a $500 million yacht and they buy private islands. That's what they do. And that's why these guys are crying these alligator tears. And it's ridiculous, really. I mean, I heard Elizabeth Warren one time say that we're asking these people to pay the taxes because they're making their fortunes using this system that we have created. By the way, all these people who go, oh, you want to be a socialist, you want to be a socialist. I always remind them, we are in the ultimate capitalist society and it's not ever going to change. And if you want proof, I always go back to the pandemic and how the pandemic, when the lockdowns happened, the government didn't lock us down. You know who locked us down? The NBA. If you remember, it was one of the players, Rudy Gobert. He had COVID, and then they started this game, and then all of a sudden they realized that there was going to be a spread, and they go, we're closing down the game. Once they saw that that game is being closed down, all of a sudden government caught up and was like, oh, we got to shut this down. So ultimately, we live in a capitalistic society. Once again, even like when you talk about like Donald Trump and all the abuses he was doing on Twitter, and it was getting crazier and crazier leading up to January 6th. And we tried in a dictatorial system, you probably would have shut him off earlier. No, it was actually Twitter and the private companies kicking him off. We live in a capitalistic society. You cannot ignore that or deny that. And these people should pay more taxes because they get away with it. Somebody was once talking about it because I didn't understand how it worked. Real quick, last point. Jeff Bezos, I was listening to the daily podcast. They were talking about Jeff Bezos was giving himself an $80,000 salary and he was paying taxes on that. And I'm going, that is ridiculous. And these guys just have these loopholes and they get through it. They're making money in this system, in our system. So they should pay their fair share of taxes.
Well, and I think to your point, Ma, specifically on it's a capitalistic society, I think a lot of people would argue that actually, no, they're not playing fairly by capitalistic rules, right? They head up monopolies like Bezos. They swallow up other companies. They are allowed to merge time and time again with no stops. I mean, the Biden administration has actually successfully put a stop to a couple of these mergers. But increasingly, they don't play by the rules of capitalism that the rest of us have to play by, right? The rest of us who can barely afford our rent each month and for whom the extra money that maybe we got under COVID, for example, for food stamps, so to speak, the $15 a month, which if you've been following this, allowed people to have like chicken for the first time in months. That all went away thanks to Republicans. So look, I'm glad that Biden is calling them out on this. Obviously, they are, Republicans truly are just siphons and funnels to get money to go up and up. And to Maz's point, they don't just buy islands and cars, they buy Supreme Court justices. That's how it works now. And so the real thing though is I wish that Biden would go harder on them about this. The fact that they didn't vote, not a single one of them voted for the American Rescue Plan, right? He doesn't tout that, in part because he's allowed a lot of those things like the child tax credit to lapse. But I wish he went even harder on just how much they are gatekeepers of plutocrats and billionaires like they hope to be one day.
100%.
Well, he did mention a couple of times, by the way, he did mention, it was kind of funny to watch Joe because he's a little older, but he was still sharp. He did mention a couple of times about, oh, you guys are taking credit for the infrastructure bill. He goes, he made fun of them for that. So, I mean, you're right. You do got to keep pushing and pushing and pointing out that these guys vote against these things. And then if it works to their benefit, they try to take credit for it, which is ridiculous.
Right.
100%. We're going to take a short break, but lots more to get to after this.
We hear you and we stand with you.
Let's see how Earth responds to that. Let's see how Earth responds to that.
Welcome one and all. Let's see what's going on out there. Lots of great comments. Hey Gabby says, I work in theater and I've never seen someone give such an embarrassing audition, let alone live performance. Francesca, would we occasionally joke about like the possibility of me trying stand up That's what I would have that, but in stand-up. Like that's why.
That's not true.
I would
That's
never
not true.
do it.
Don't you think he'd be great, Maz? Like a little
bullet points, John. Bullet points.
Yeah.
I'm gonna need more than just bullet points. Let's see. Techstan says, great day to have the comedy heavyweights on the power panel. I can't wait for the dunking to begin. It's always great to have you two here. Shy Coltrane says, Maz is in the house. Time to laugh your butts off. Very nice. Jess says, OMG, I didn't think I could love John more. Best drop it ever. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, 36 Chambers says, well, I know it's already going to be a good weekend with that ridiculous drop. LOL, great panel, thank you. Let's see. ACGC says, John said, act like someone you saw on TV. She's acting like everyone she's ever seen on TV all at the same time. Yes. That is kind of the trouble. She's like AI that you fed too much raw material into and it doesn't know what to do with it. Anyway, okay, Who's Your Daddy says, go to the kitchen, John? I don't know what I said to deserve that. That's where serious political discussion happens. I don't know if you know that. Paper Dragon gifted a sub, thank you. Dave Schmidt gifted a sub, thank you as well. Technauseated says, female Patrick Bateman. Damn. Cart Blanchy has been with us on Twitch for 35 months and says, hey Dragon Daddy, Franny and Maz have been away for a bit. My sister-in-law recently passed from a sudden brain aneurysm. She'll be missed by all. I'm so sorry to hear that. It's obviously one of the most devastating and unexpected, unpredictable things, and really sorry that your family had to go through that. The 505 Wrecking Ball has been here for 2 full years and says, much love all the way from the 505, progressive versus everybody. Thank you, appreciate that, and I agree. Zafad says, tell you what, if the rich didn't want a class war, they shouldn't have started one. I agree as a general principle, but I also say that while I'm on Biden's side in that, it's not like Biden is a class warrior or something. His big proposal was that the rich should have a minimum 21% tax rate, which that's like the corporate tax rate that Trump negotiated for corporations. Right. Like that's nothing.
Yes.
And it's a marginal tax rate at that. So again,
by the way, how many billions of dollars do you need? I mean, I'm telling. I'm making this statement right here, right now. If I make $1 billion, once I get to $1 billion, I'm willing to give 20%. Right now, I'm committing to it. Not 21, but 20.
Innocent Americans are dying, are dying, are dying, are dying. Innocent Americans are dying.
Let's see how Earth responds to that.
Welcome back, one and all. Lots more to discuss, including one of the big domestic political news stories of the day, starting with this.
In a world where qualifications are often measured by titles and years of experience, we are reminded of a powerful truth. God does not call the qualified, He qualifies the called. Lara Trump is the embodiment of this truth.
Ouch! Burn? I think Lara Trump just got roasted, but look, it's her big day, okay? She has now been elected the co-chair of the Republican National Committee. That means that Trump has more influence over the RNC, and she has now the biggest political position that she's ever had. And she got it not based off of qualifications. That's not me saying that. That's the woman announcing the news who said that. But because she married Eric Trump, okay? And I know a lot of people would like poo-poo that and say, well, what kind of qualification is that? She paid her dues. She has had to spend many, many hours in the same room as Eric Trump. Does she not deserve this after all that work, all that service? But anyway, it's not her only experience. She's not only his wife, she's a mother of 2, a fitness fiend, says the Wall Street Journal, a Tom Petty cover vocalist, a children's book author, and a former Inside Edition producer. So why should she not be in charge of the Republican National Committee and in charge of hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars? In any event, I'm curious what the panel thinks about her qualifications, but also what she clearly has been put on in this position to do. And in case it's not clear going in, here she is before she got the position telling us what she plans to do.
We need to make sure that every penny of every dollar donated to the RNC is going to Donald Trump's campaign.
What I can assure you is if I am there, I will make sure that every single penny donated to the RNC goes to electing Donald Trump and again, extending our lead in the House and taking back the Senate. Here's what I can tell you. The RNC needs to be the leanest, most lethal political fighting machine we've ever seen in American history. That is the goal over the next 9.5 months. If I am elected to this position, I can assure you there will not be any more $70,000 or whatever exorbitant amount of money it was spent on flowers. Every single penny will go to the #1 and the only job of the RNC. That is electing Donald J. Trump as president of the United States and saving this country.
So it is pretty clear what she wants to do and why they would put her on that position, considering that she has no relevant experience whatsoever. You don't need a whole lot of experience to say, we're taking all of this money and we're giving it to Trump, my literal family member. And at times like this, I'm thinking what I imagine many of you are thinking. Joe Biden really did give too much to Hunter Biden. That family is too embroiled in politics and everything as Trump takes over the entire Republican Party apparatus. So look, I'm not even mad about it though. I'm joking about Lara Trump, but if they want to take all of that money that candidates across the country on the Republican side desperately need to get elected, and they want to just throw it into a massive hole of his legal obligations and fines, I think that's fine. She taking that position and promising to give all the money to Trump, something I think that she will make good on, certainly imperils their chances of holding on to the House and their chances of taking over the Senate. And as someone who doesn't want them in power, I really don't mind. Francesca, what do you think?
You said everything, John. This is what I don't want to do the show with you anymore.
I apologize.
Because you just said all the good stuff, but you're exactly right. The nepotism charges for Hunter Biden. Oh, look, now Lara Trump, the daughter-in-law, is in charge of the RNC. Do you guys care about democracy? No, we don't. We just care about King Trump winning again and again and again. All of the money that they're gonna need to, yes, to maintain the House, to gain any kind of lead, to win the Senate, I guess. No, all of that's gone. It's completely gone. And if they don't win in November, like what happens? Does Lara Trump stay on because of her incredible, I mean, she can really do free fall, and when she gets like a couple of beers in her and she just, and I'm free, no man, you're gonna be in free fall is what you're gonna be in if he doesn't win in November. And even if he does, like, I don't know, it's just mind boggling to me, but good luck. The problem, and I think the interesting thing is, what about all the donors to Nikki Haley, folks like the Koch brothers, the buttoned up conservatives? They want their tax breaks, but they want to do it, without all the overt racism. Is it going to be more difficult for the RNC to fundraise now that Lara Trump is in charge?
Yeah, and just to piggyback on your free falling reference, how about I won't back down? I think that a lot of these Republicans, they hear these types of songs, I won't back down, I'm so tough, I'm not gonna back down. And then they start using it or singing it or whatever until the estate of Tom Petty hears about it and sends him a cease and desist. And he's like, stop using my songs. This poor guy who supports nothing you're doing, please back down. We don't want you to not sing his songs. And this is continuously happening, by the way. That pretty soon, like if it gets out that she was this Tom Petty vocalist, I'm sure the estate's gonna do something, and she'll have to turn to one of these, far right wing, she'll start singing Kid Rock music. So that's one thing she's gonna end up doing. #1. #2, the introduction was brilliant. I mean, the lady said, I forget the exact word. She goes, "God does not choose the qualified, but qualified."
The Chosen. Oh, God.
The Chosen. Listen, I'm a comedian. If I were about to go up on stage and the MC would be like, this guy coming to the stage, he's not funny, but sometimes comedy chooses people, and we got no one else. So he's here to take your money. Bring him on. I'd be like, really? Like, I'd be offended. So it was the worst intro. And thirdly,
God chose him to make you laugh, though.
God chose him to make you laugh. Don't listen to his jokes. His jokes don't have punchlines. But if you just listen to God, it'll tickle you.
If you don't laugh, you're not a pious person, effectively.
Yeah, and at this point, by the way, I think the word grifter should be a synonym to the word Trump. As a matter of fact, I think that from now on, you know how Trump gives nicknames? We should just name them all like Lara Grifter, Donald Grifter, Ivanka Grifter. Just start using the last name Grifter for them and really get the point across that these people are the biggest grifters. I've seen so many videos of Trump supporters at Trump rallies going, you know what I love about him? He doesn't need the money. He's already got money. He's rich. And I go, then why is he sending you a letter asking you for money? If you really didn't need the money, he'd be like, look, I'm a billionaire. I got this. Don't worry about it. You keep your money. Pay for your children to eat. Don't worry about it. Meanwhile, hey, here's a check. I'm going to write you a check. He doesn't need the money. Not only does he needs the money so badly, he's putting his daughter-in-law in charge of asking you for money while he's asking you for money from another one. He's asking for money in several different, he is the ultimate spam call. Donald Trump, if you get a phone call and it says potential spam, that's Donald Trump and his family calling you. Don't answer.
Yeah, and if you're a conservative, like, you know that he could just spend $1 billion of his own dollars, fully fund his own presidential campaign, freeing up all that money for good MAGA weirdos all over the country to win. And at the end, he would still be a billionaire. But he's not gonna do that. He's gonna take all of your money, he's gonna soak it up from these other candidates, and they aren't gonna have it, and they're not gonna get elected. And for some reason, you think that he's a hero for that reason. But before we move on, I do wanna remind you, in terms of, like, again, we keep coming back to, like, did you know Hunter Biden got a job because he's related to Joe Biden? Yeah, that's nepotism, and I don't like it. Did you know that Lara Trump got a job with Parscale for Trump's re-election campaign in 2020, and she was paid $180,000 a year as a political consultant? That's just stupid money. That's just free money. She doesn't have qualifications. In 2021, she was rumored that when Richard Burr left office, she would run for Senate.
I remember that.
So she was an Inside Edition producer. That's good. I love producers. That's good. Does that necessarily qualify? Obviously, she's gonna run for Senate, but that's not suspicious. Hunter Biden, selling a painting or something, clearly nepotism, and I think Congress should investigate. They're ridiculous.
This goes back real quickly, John. This goes back to our first segment where we were talking about Katie Britt and how it's funny how she was. And in this case, Lara Trump being now one of the people in charge of the RNC. It's funny, but after you're done laughing, you got to step back and look at the actual crimes that are being happening. Look at the actual policies that they're trying to pass and realize that you're being taken, and wake up and fight.
100%. Okay, I think we're getting a little bit on. I think we should take our second break. When we come back, we're gonna give you a little update on some of Donald Trump's legal travails, and then see if we can do the story about some attempted activism in Israel coming up after this. Welcome back, one and all. Brett Campbell asked for a birthday shout out to my doggy son Kevin, turns 8. Oh, happy birthday, doggy son Kevin. Boomer Dragon Cat says, as a so-called poor, I do resent the insanely rich. Why can't people be understanding, compassionate, and giving? Most of the poor, as I know, are. Yeah, I understand that everybody gets caught up in their own worldview, but being a literal billionaire, you have more money than you could ever spend if all you did was try to spend it. They literally have had movies where that's the plot. And you're being mean to us, guys. I want more irrelevant zeros on an online banking account that I'll never tap into. And they're serious when they say it. It's dragon sickness, and we need to talk about it more as a country. Cat Blower, Jorge as well became members. Thank you. A lot of gifting going on out there. Mama Bear Dragon gifted 5 memberships. Thank you, Mama Bear Dragon. BH gifted 10. Thank you. And Drink Your OJ gifted 5 as well. Thank you so much. Okay, Brandy Nuance, member for 14 months. I will say happy birthday to Vincent Morales. I think that's a reference to something happened on TDR this morning. British 32 sent in a super chat saying the GOP is trying to make being a housewife cool again for all females in the USA, so people forget about abortion rights and the previous rapist in chief, Donald J. for Genius Trump. There's absolutely nothing wrong with housewives whatsoever, but why are you pretending that she, like, again, I understand that the right like fetishizes the idea of like a trad wife or whatever. She is a well-educated woman who served as a lawyer, worked at multiple levels of politics, and is now a senator. Why is she pretending that that's not the case? Or even if you don't think that she is, and maybe she's not, why are they pretending on her behalf that that's what's going on? You can put her at a podium in front of a crowd of people. She has spoken, I would imagine, at many rallies. Why is she doing cosplay? Anyway, thank you again, ACGC, for the super chat. Matt Gates says, on the White Ford Bronco, says, during the State of the Union, I found out Akira Toriyama, the creator of Dragon Ball, died. I was devastated, but when I saw Senator Bush's speech, I perked back up. I thought she was gonna turn Super Saiyan Karen and fire a Kamehameha at Biden. That was a journey, like many of her paragraphs are, but sorry to hear about the passing of that anime creator. Glad that the speech gave you a little bit of a burst of energy. Lady D says,
I think that Saturday Night Live for their sketch, they should have Katie Britt in a soap opera scene.
Yes.
And then she turns to the camera and she delivers the thing, and then she gets back into the scene and she delivers it again, and the emotions go up and down. That could be a fun way to do it.
Yes, I love this.
I love it. Look, I know that they're probably not listening and they're not gonna give you just what I want, but I would say I think Chloe Trost to play Katie Britt. I think that she could do it. I want Bowen Yang as George Santos wearing the diamond-studded choker. And you've gotta bring Cecily Strong back to play Marjorie Greene and heckle Joe Biden. Like, you can't not do that. You still have her number, right? She can fly in. It wouldn't be that difficult.
Or her drunk Judge Pirro, which is the best.
I would also be down for that. Okay, stick around, more news on the other side of this.
Innocent Americans are dying, are dying, are dying. I'm so upset. Oh my God.
Welcome back, one and all, to what remains of the first hour of the Young Turks. Lots more to come, coming up in the second hour, but for now we have this. Donald Trump is not having the best day in court, or courts perhaps, because of course every week there's multiple trials that are moving forward, and we want to give you updates on a few of them. So the first has to do with the classified documents case. You forgot about that one, didn't you? Well, it's still proceeding and it may even go to trial, although it's not guaranteed at this point. Eileen Cannon, the judge overseeing the case, is currently deciding whether that trial should begin in the summer or if it should wait until potentially after the presidential election, in which case Donald Trump could win office and then just snap his fingers and the case is gone. But the special counsel is trying to make sure that that doesn't happen. And one of the ways that he's doing that is by stressing that Donald Trump's claim that he had absolute immunity to steal hundreds of classified documents is on its face ridiculous, and it's clearly being put forward as a means to delay the trial. He says it is so wholly without merit that it's difficult to understand it except as part of a strategic effort for delay, hoping that she will accept that and move forward expeditiously. Smith's office asked Judge Eileen Cannon to certify his new immunity claim as frivolous, which would foreclose the former president's avenue for an immediate appeal that would delay the trial. An immunity claim is one of the few issues that, if appealed, could derail a trial. And look, It is ridiculous on its face, but a lot of judges, including the Supreme Court recently, have been pretending that there might be merit to it. And we do have to bear in mind in this case that it's Eileen Cannon. She has shown a willingness to go above and beyond any sort of ethical obligations or guidelines in trying to manipulate this case to benefit Donald Trump. So we'll see how that goes. We know that the Supreme Court is going to be taking up the immunity claim on a separate trial, the January 6th trial on April 25th. So we still have more than a month to wait for that. But Francesca, starting with you, what do you think about this update?
I mean, yes, I had forgotten about it, but again, this is one of the more egregious and stupid of the crimes that Donald Trump has committed. And I realize that is, it's a high bar there. There's a lot of dumb ones, but this is the dumbest. This was like I want this for show and tell to my friends slash spies trying to get in a word with me at Mar-a-Lago, buying my loyalty as they sip down impossibly disgusting cocktails. So, and watch me cheat at golf. Like, and the other thing is like, I think that they go on and on about Nada, right? Like Donald Trump's like right-hand guy was this guy named Walt Nada, and Nada's like very much in deep doo-doo over this. So why shouldn't Trump be? Like, it is the most throwing this guy under the bus when he just carried out the wishes of the former president. But again, we're gonna see how the Supreme Court handles the immunity case when it comes to this president. And I think I don't know, John, I mean, Maz, what do you guys think? Like, I think they will not allow him to have presidential immunity, but it will succeed, as we saw, in punting the rest of these cases farther and farther down the line. So ultimately after November, it's not gonna matter.
Yeah, these guys, listen, his defense team is using the strategy that some of us use when we get the letter to go be on a jury. If you delay it long enough, maybe it'll go away. And so they've been doing that with everything. This immunity case is just the fact that he wasn't even president when this happened. The classified documents happened after he was president. And then he admits his own guilt by saying, well, I actually declassified it before I took it with me. It's just a complete mess. And there shouldn't even be a question. It's so crazy. It's so obvious. It's like, and then the false equivalency that his supporters do. They go, well, Biden had classified documents, but Mike Pence had classified documents. Yeah, but when they were asked to return them, they returned them. They did not obstruct justice. It's like somebody is gonna, arrest some people with drugs, and one person goes, look, I got it, here you go. This is how it came about. And that person might end up getting more leniency versus the guy who runs and starts shooting to try, and then hides it in his bathroom. That guy's gonna get taken down. And then they keep going and they go, oh, this is the politicization of the Department of Justice. No, your guy would not be getting pursued if he hadn't committed any crimes. It's never happened. There hasn't been any president ever in the history of the United States that's committed so many crimes. And then he has the gall to turn around and go, why are you investigating me? Because you're a criminal. You're a crook. You are worse than Nixon. And so I'm happy that Smith is the prosecutor is going after him, and I hope they keep going. And you're right, we've got the uphill battle. This guy is the luckiest dude in the world. He's got Eileen Cannon, who is a hack over there, who's trying to support him and save him. He's very much the road runner, and I feel like we're Wile E. Coyote. But it's time Wiley finally caught that road runner. Maybe it'll happen.
I like it. I wasn't sure exactly where you were going with that metaphor, but I liked it in the end. Yeah, 100%. The weirdest thing about all of this is not that he broke the law, it's that he seemingly spent every moment breaking a variety of laws. Like, how did you commit so many crimes? A week ago, when I was reminded of the hush money trial, I thought, I had forgotten that one. Like, there's so many floating out there. How did you do all this? And look, some of it he's already lost. Remember, of course, a jury found that he had sexually abused E. Jean Carroll, which bothers literally zero MAGA people. They don't care that he raped this woman and then spent decades lying about it. Super weird, but he did owe quite a lot as a result of that. And he has put forward the actual bond for the $91.6 million. It'll end up costing him more. That's how bonds work. He's gonna have to pay interest and all that, a fee to the bonding company. But it was backed by the Chubb company, an insurance giant who chose to name itself that. In any event, if he loses the appeal, he's gonna have to make good on the money that they backed. Theoretically though, if the appeal works the way that he thinks it might, or that Alina Habba thinks it might, then maybe he'll end up owing less or maybe nothing. And that's the $91.6 million, the nearly $500 million that he owes in the New York civil fraud case. That's due in a little bit less than 3 weeks. So it remains to be seen if he'll be able to get that one backed. But he did for the smaller one. Super fast reaction, starting with you, Francesca.
I mean, Lara Trump is now a co-chair, so he's gonna be able to pay that money back. And good for Chubb, whose name I'm now somehow Googling. I think it should be more like Chud. That's more like on the nose, MAGA Chud. But yeah, he coughed it up. That's all I have to say. They eventually coughed it up, and they will probably have to cough up more.
Yeah,
he's gonna be selling a lot of shoes, John. He's got to sell a lot of shoes. But these guys, again, I think let's work on Trump grifter, Donald grifter. I just want people to use that because he's the biggest grifter, and I hope that every strategy that they have in court backfires. I really do. I've never had so much animosity for a human being in my life. I was talking to somebody today about we all have close people that we love. And then, people that you love that end up getting sick, and you're like, my God, that person is sick, and they're not in a good state, and they might pass away. And I go, I would never wish because then meanwhile you have a lot of bad people who keep living. And I go, I would never wish anybody dies. But I got a list, and I don't want to go any further. I don't like the karma of it all. But he's just the worst human being in the world.
But the happiest day of the last 5 years of my life was when Donald Trump had COVID and got that, yes.
What a great day.
I realized that my daughter was born in the last 5 years. I stand by what I said.
She's still top 5, I think.
There you go.
Anyway, hopefully Karina will never see this video someday. In any event, we are running low on time, and I want to make sure that we get to this last story. So we're going to cover it at least in an abbreviated fashion. Whenever we're ready, why don't we roll this footage?
We are 10 minutes from the borders with Gaza. We have a truck full of food for the people starving in Gaza. The police and the army won't let us get in. So we are staying here. We will keep holding on until they will let us in, because there is no reason to let people starve to death in Gaza. This does not benefit any of us, not the people living in Gaza and not the people living in Israel. And we demand a ceasefire agreement that will bring back the hostages and stop the killing of innocent people in Gaza.
A strong message, and powerfully delivered there by an activist named Rula Daoud, who's a Palestinian woman, also a citizen of Israel, who, along with a number of other Israeli activists, put together a convoy of dozens of vehicles, including a 7-ton truck that they packed with aid in the form of food and medicine, and then they brought it near the border with Gaza. They wanted to get it in because, as she says, there's no reason for people to starve, but many people are in the process of starving right now through no small part from the fact that aid that has been made available just can't get in there. It's being stopped at the border, it's being disrupted. So they tried to fix that situation, and of course they were stopped. Now, they knew in advance that they were extremely unlikely to be able to bring the aid in, but they wanted to do this as sort of a symbolic act to bring to light the fact that there are people, including activists in Israel, that do not want this suffering to continue. They said they wanted to highlight a different voice and show there are people in our society who feel what is happening in Gaza is unacceptable. And so you could see there, I mean, look, she mentioned getting the hostages back. They don't want anyone on either side of this conflict to die, either through violence or through the absolute degradation of the infrastructure in Gaza in terms of access to water, to food, to medical supplies, that is going to result in an incredible amount of suffering and potentially in the long term, even more deaths than have been accrued through the actual direct violence of the assault on Gaza by the IDF. Maybe we can get to a little bit more, but Francesca, I wanted to start with you. What are your thoughts about this symbolic act, this attempt to help?
I mean, I think it is incredibly brave and I think important, especially in Israel, especially at a time, in following such a heinous attack when they lose their jobs if they speak out in support of Palestinian human rights. But I also think it speaks to the incredible ineptitude, not just of the Israeli government, but the United States government. Today we saw more airdrops from US planes with parachutes on, sort of this last ditch attempt to get any food to the people of Gaza. Some of those parachutes failed to open, and those aid packages actually wound up killing 2 Palestinians, I believe, in northeast Gaza. Like, so this is the state that we are in, and it is a terrible failure, a moral failure, a political failure, between the United States and Israel. The one actor that could just open up the borders to allow the trucks that are there with food rotting day by day. Last thing I'll say is, look, when this entire war, although now genocide, began, I thought, the estimates were like, look, we're looking at 10 to 30,000 dead. And I felt a gut punch. No way, we can't allow that to happen. 30,000 and counting, 25,000 of them women and children by the US's own admission, 25,000 women and children. But then the other thing that was said was the death based on starvation coming out of this will be worse. So imagine 30,000. We're hearing deaths every single day from mostly children because they need the most nutrients and their lives are the most fragile, who are dying.
Yeah.
You're gonna be seeing more than 30,000 people starving to death unless we take immediate action, and that starts by opening up these borders.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking and it's crazy because I think that the Palestinians have become so dehumanized in the eyes of some. And of course, you can also say, when I talk to some of my Jewish friends, they go, well, they dehumanized us. War dehumanizes. And we need to get past that and realize that these two people need to coexist there. And it's crazy because when you say, oh, I'm calling for, I support ceasefire. A lot of people go, well, what about bringing back the hostages? You go, well, that's part of the idea. The only time the hostages came back was when there was a ceasefire. Yeah.
Yes.
So let's get that ceasefire. Let's get those hostages back, and let's come up with a political solution. This is a failure, as Francesca was saying, not just of Israel and the United States, but of the whole world. We've ignored this problem. We've let it continue on, and we thought, oh, it'll just go away. We'll just ignore it. You can't. There's other countries and other peoples that are living side by side and have learned to coexist. I know there's a deep history. I know that there's both sides are saying you did this, the other side says you did that. We are where we are. There's millions of Palestinians, there's millions of Israelis. We need to come up with a solution. And as Francesca said, the first thing that needs to happen is the United States has the power to tell Israel, stop. Just stop, ceasefire. None of this like wishy-washy, like maybe we should, we're kind of calling for a ceasefire, kind of, maybe, can you please? No, stop it. We've given you all the fact that like on the one hand, we're giving them weapons, on the other hand, we're trying to throw in
exactly.
It's just silly. It's like relief, humanitarian relief, so
stop
it's really
sending them
heartbreaking.
Weapons. That's what it is.
Yeah, and the fact is, listen, you got to see your enemy as a human being. These are human beings. And I understand that October 7th was a horrible and atrocious day. But again, unfortunately, there's no weapon that can just kill the masterminds of October 7th and the Hamas leadership and then not kill all these innocent people. And so, 100%. These people that were doing this are brave. And I hope that we continue to push, but ultimately it falls on the Biden administration to step up and really start saying and doing serious stuff.
Well, the organization is standing together. They have a website if you want to learn more about what they're trying to accomplish. The final thing that I'm gonna say about this is when we talked about dehumanization, I noticed something during the State of the Union yesterday. You might have noticed the Republicans were not quick to clap or to stand up. That's the way that it works. It's sort of a norm of these things. But there were a few instances in which Mike Johnson, who was visible on camera the entire time, did actually stand up and clap. And I noticed one. See, Joe Biden transitioned to talking about the situation in Gaza. And he talked about the tragedy of October 7th and how it was unacceptable that so many had died and that we have to get the hostages back. And Mike Johnson stood up and clapped. And he should. The hostages should be returned. It's unacceptable what happened on October 7th. And then Joe Biden talked about the more than 30,000 that have died since in Gaza and how that needs to stop. He didn't stand.
No.
He didn't clap because he didn't care. He didn't care if 30,000 die. He doesn't care if it's 10,000 children, 3,000 one-year-olds that died. He doesn't care if twice as many die in the end. He doesn't care if 5 times as many starve or die needlessly of diseases that could have been treated if their medical institutions were still standing. He didn't care, and he didn't think he needed to even pretend to care when he was on camera. And I don't know what to say about that. It's just socially acceptable to care about the lives of some people and not about the lives of others. We should be better than that, but thus far, we're not. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have for the first hour. There's a lot more to come in the second hour. Francesca, as always, thank you so much. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. Before I go, come see me in Sacramento, March 17th, Sunday at 7 p.m. That's next Sunday, St. Patrick's Day. I'll be with Matt Lieb, myself, FrancescaFiorentini.com for tickets.
Thank you, and Maz, as always, pleasure to have you here. Thank you.
And I'm in Phoenix this weekend. I'm coming to Dallas. I'm coming to Detroit. Go to mazjorbani.com. Come see me live, and let's laugh a little. And you know, we all need a little release.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. I will be in LA this weekend with my family. Leave me alone. I'll see you on Monday. Bye, everyone. Welcome to the Damage Report. I'm John Idarola. This is gonna be a big one. Meanwhile, in the Arctic, you know where this is going. You watch the Damage Report, the Arctic's on fire. Obviously, why would we be talking about the Arctic except to tell you that it's melting once again? The Republicans aren't that interested in it. I wonder why. Lift out of poverty up to 3.7 million people, including an estimated 1.3 million children. Hashtag save the children? Not if it costs money. I mean, come on.
At TYT, our mission is to boldly pursue truth, challenge the establishment, and drive positive change. At a time when corporate capture of our media, our government, and our politics is nearly absolute, everyday working people need a champion to fight for them and to push back against the powerful interests that threaten our democracy itself. At TYT, we're proudly progressive and call out corruption and duplicity wherever we see it, from Republicans, Democrats, or anyone else. And unlike mainstream news media outlets, we're not beholden to corporate advertisers, to defense contractors, to Wall Street, or to Big Pharma. We only have to answer to our audience, and for nearly 2 decades, we've accomplished that by delivering honest, timely, and insightful perspectives on the day's news without fear or favor or concern for whose toes we might step on or which powerful elites we might offend. And while we're super serious about the news, we also manage to do it in a way that is fun and lighthearted. We can do this together and serve our audience, and yes, have fun doing it.
Indisputable is still the fastest growing news show in America compared to CNN, Fox News, and 30 other networks. We tell the truth on Indisputable because the truth is indisputable. We go places that other news media outlets refuse to go. When there were human rights abuses happening at the Victorville prison, guards and members of the community contacted us.
You, through your investigative reporting, unearthed very troubling allegations about specific forms of abuse and discrimination in the federal prison system.
It really doesn't take much to be a trusted voice. All it takes is to be fearless, report on matters, be an advocate. I called it the bullpen intentionally because it's a place of preparation. We present individuals who may have an opposing view, so we debate. Sometimes we interview individuals because their stories deserve to be heard. A survivor of significant police misconduct and his attorney. We covered this story earlier, and to remind you of the horror of one man being shot at damn near 100 times by the police. We take time on this show to showcase the temper tantrums of Karens in the wild. We do this not because we want to see people's emotional outbursts in public, but because these incidents are emblematic of a bigger societal issue taking place across the nation, and it has to be checked.
My friend, my big homie, attorney at law, Benjamin Crump.
I just want to thank you, man. Educated, articulate brothers like yourself speak speak truth to power, it makes a great difference in changing the landscape in America. So
listen, no matter what you do, don't allow the politics of ideology to evaporate the soul that still exists inside of you. They don't stop, I don't stop. Racism won't stop, I won't stop. Systemic bias won't stop, I won't stop. People still need health care, so I won't stop. People still need criminal justice systems reform, so I won't stop. You won't stop either.
Mr. President, enough is enough.
I'm so upset. Oh my God.
Innocent Americans are dying, are dying, are dying.
Let's see how Earth responds to that.
And elbows are dropping. That was my Katie Britt impression. All right, power panel. Jake Hugo, Ravana, Jackson White. I'm going to come back to them in a second, but Cal Blower, Jorge Jimenez, they just joined by hitting the join button below and instantly became American heroes. Speaking of which, Mama Bear Dragon gifted 5 memberships, and so did Drink Your OJ, agreed with that. And BH gifted 10 Young Turks memberships on YouTube. You guys are all awesome. Speaking of awesome, so Jackson White's of course on Rebel headquarters, you know that. Apparently all of America knows that because he's killing it over there. And he's also the host of Politics in Paper. And Ravana, of course, I normally say is on Rebel headquarters, but both a congratulatory and tragic moment at the same time. This is Ray's last appearance on TYT because she has now gotten a fancy lawyer's job. Congratulations, Ray. We're proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you. No, it's been wonderful. I do have one more Rebel HQ video that will be posted on Monday, and I'll be on John's show on Tuesday, but this will be my last time on the main show. So I just want to say thank you to everybody. And the audience especially has been wonderful, and it's definitely bittersweet. It's time to start my career, but I'm really sad to, leave this behind. And hopefully I'll be able to return to it in the future, but yeah, but for now it has to end, like all good things.
Yeah, indeed. Well, you've been awesome. We love you. We appreciate you. You've been a ray of sunshine in this company, in this show, etc. And puns like ray of sunshine are actually in the rundown today, and how it actually is hurting you by me making jokes like that. But that's later, and it's a fascinating story. Okay, but now speaking of amazing comebacks, let's go to our first story.
Yeah, we have to talk about my boy, George Santos.
A contrast in the number of people and the people we're seeing in there, including George Santos.
An expelled member of Congress who still, as a former member of Congress not convicted of a crime, has a right to be there on the House floor and has decided to come tonight. No invitation necessary. So he's there, just one of the many storylines that we see developing on the floor tonight.
Former member of Congress not convicted of a crime yet. Now, of course, that was expelled former member Representative George Santos, who took a break from making cameos to make an appearance at last night's State of the Union address. And what a whirlwind night it was for Mr. Santos, or whoever the hell he's pretending to be today. Now, ahead of President Joe Biden's address, Fox News correspondent Chad Pergram caught up with Santos at the Capitol and peppered him with some questions. Take a look.
This is your first time back in the building?
Yes, it's my first time back in the building.
And you came why?
State of the Union, why not?
Okay.
It's a privilege.
Have you received any of your colleagues or talked to them?
I was just visiting with some of my colleagues in a very bipartisan fashion.
And what's it like to be back, though?
It's different. It's different. Definitely the people's house. It's always a humbling experience, and it's always great to be back.
Do you think this will be the last time you come, or any of your legal
I don't know. I don't know about that. I couldn't. If I knew that, I'd be guessing the lottery first.
Are you trying to, I don't know, do you want to come back someday in another congressional district, or?
I don't put anything past my desire to run for office at this point, but right now it's just, I'm a spectator. I'm just here watching.
Where are you sitting?
I don't know yet.
Who are you, like a guest of someone?
No, I'm a former member. I have privileges. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
I didn't mean to photo bomb.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Thank you.
So as he mentioned there, as a former member, he has the privilege to attend. So a little bit more on that from Business Insider. Though he's been denied at least some of the typical post-service perks enjoyed by other former members, the U.S. Association of Former Members of Congress previously told Business Insider they wanted nothing to do with him. It would have taken yet another act of Congress, specifically a resolution by the House, to keep him from entering the chamber again. And obviously that was not a step that they took. But just because Santos is allowed on the floor doesn't mean he gets a prime seat for the State of the Union. Now, seats reserved for the expelled rep who reportedly spent campaign money on Botox and OnlyFans, just in case you forgot that, are way, way, way back in the nosebleeds. And while Biden began his route to the State of the Union address, CNN's Jake Tapper and Jamie Gangel discussed Santos's presence at the event.
George Santos is back. I'm told that he was sitting in some seats and that GOP floor staff politely asked him to move from the seats to the back so that current members would have a seat, and that he, much to one person's surprise, that he politely complied with that, and he's now standing in the back. But there is just no end with George Santos.
Thirsty George Santos.
Standing room only, apparently, for expelled, disgraced former members of Congress. And of course, he literally has no purpose in being there. Well, actually, he had some purpose, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But he clearly wasn't wanted there. And he was doing some live tweeting of the event and criticizing Joe Biden on his timeliness. He posted this: "Hey POTUS, you're late. Rude." Obviously trying to get a little bit of attention there. And I noted that he did have a bigger purpose in being there. We'll get to that in a second. I want to bring you guys in on this first. It feels like we'll never rid ourselves of George Santos. Just when you think he's gone, just when he's gotten out of the limelight, he just pops right back up again. And I really didn't expect to see him when I was watching the State of the Union. Although honestly, as you know, maybe his biggest fan, it was a pleasant surprise for me. What did you guys think?
Yeah, and maybe he's just a fan of politics. In fact, maybe he's one of the only fans. Okay, again, later in the show, a story about how that joke can harm you. Anyways, so George Santos, it cracks me up. He cracks everybody up. That's why we cover him, and he knows that, and that's why he went. So what is he looking for? More attention. Of course. And you know what? I say well played. Why not? Look, the more he's in the news, the bigger his name is, and the more he could charge for cameos. So that's how this world works. And I think the whole thing's silly. I don't do any of that, and I try to actually help folks. But Santos is not in that game. He's in a different game. He's in the me game. And if you're in that game, going and having everybody interview you and talk about you in the State of the Union,
in a situation where you're allowed in the building, I don't hate the player, if you, it is what it is. And not only can he charge higher prices for whatever scam he's running, or just flat out cameos, which are not scams, but also he can't help himself. He loves that spotlight. So I don't know if I'm allowed to say drama queen, but whatever the equivalent is, that's who this brother is, and we all know it. Jackson.
Yeah, my only regret with George Santos is that he didn't find my OnlyFans. You know what I'm saying? If he would have stumbled across me a bit sooner, if I would have hopped on the platform a bit earlier, maybe we would have been good. But no, he probably would have liked him a little bit of snacks, and I'm gonna have to hit his line. But the thing about George Santos to me that really cracks me up is while he's really entertaining, he's actually a really deviant person. You know what I'm saying? Like, this dude took money from a dog's GoFundMe, a sick dog's GoFundMe. He took money from that. And then I don't know how many tens of thousands of dollars that he just straight ganked from people, including people who were helping his campaign, who were on board with what he was doing. I mean, I've always said about him, luckily for us, as far as we know, he's not a violent person because he's nuts. I mean, like, he's legitimately like not okay. I used to say stuff like maybe if he would have dropped out of the race, and not actually entered the halls of Congress, he wouldn't be in this position. But I don't know, man, because at the end of the day, he just rips people off left and right. So people like George Santos, ultimately, they end up in prison. And he, if he can't stop ripping people off, that's what it is.
Yeah. And I mean, just further evidence of his insanity. And let's be honest, the reason he went to the State of the Union address was to get attention, because he decided, apparently during the State of the Union, to file the necessary paperwork to launch his primary campaign against Representative Nick LaLota. Yes, George Santos is running for office again, this time in a different district. Now, it's important to note that LaLota led the bipartisan effort to expel Santos from Congress back in September. So a little more on his decision to run. Paperwork filed with the FEC on Thursday indicates Santos will run for the Republican-leaning 1st Congressional District, a suburban seat in Suffolk, Long Island, represented by Representative Nick LaLota. That district is further east and more Republican-leaning than the nearby district that elected Santos in 2022. So, in other words, he's pulling a Lauren Boebert and running in a completely separate district. And he did formally announce his candidacy last night on Twitter. Tweeted, "I just witnessed a weak, frail president deliver spin and lies to the American people from inside the chambers. I have made several personal sacrifices in the name of serving the American people." I'm sorry. I knew I wasn't gonna be able to read that without laughing. It's just so absurd. "My promise is that I will never back down because of my love for this country and misusing the funds that people donate to my campaign." That was me editorializing. He didn't actually say that, but he did say this: "New York hasn't had a real conservative represent them since I left office arbitrarily." Yeah, that's what happened. Thanks to rhino empty suits like Nick LaLota, he is willing to risk the future of our majority and the future of this country for his own political gain. Of course, he didn't actually leave office arbitrarily. He was expelled. He was expelled by members of his own party. And then finally, he wrapped it up by saying, "After a lot of prayer and conversation with my friends and family, I have made a very important decision that will shake things up. Tonight, I want to announce that I will be returning to the arena of politics and challenging Nick for the battle over New York 1. I look forward to debating him on the issues and on his weak record as a Republican. The fight for our majority is imperative for the survival of the country." And then he ended it with, "God bless you all, and we are off to the races." Of course, he's facing a long shot in this election, assuming that he's not sentenced to prison for wire fraud, money laundering, and all of the myriad of other crimes he's been charged with before the June 25th primary. But honestly, I don't know if you guys had this sort of inclination, but when I saw him at the State of the Union, and when I saw that interview where he was being very cagey about whether or not he was gonna run, I was like, oh, okay, he's trying to make a political comeback. This person is shameless. He hasn't He hasn't been successful in other realms. He had a brief period of time where he was making some good money on Cameo, but his moment of fame subsided. So of course he's going to try to get back in as an elected official, although his chances are, equivalent to that of a snowball's chances in hell. I really don't see him even making a dent in this primary race.
Yeah, so I want to be clear. I joke around about him getting Botox and OnlyFans and stuff. I don't care about that at all. I think that a lot of prominent politicians, including Democratic leaders, might have gotten Botox. Who cares? That's not the issue. The issue is using campaign funds to do that. But one of our members wrote in, Brunswick Dragon, saying, why isn't disgrace a thing anymore? That's a good question. That's why we like to do the show with our members. Hit the join button below if you want to join them. Well, there's a simple answer to that. It's Donald Trump. Donald Trump did everything that was disgraceful, and all it did was help him. So people look at that and go, well, this guy became president by doing, some of the things he did I can't imagine anything more disgraceful, right? And it totally worked. He got more famous, he got more power, he got more everything. And I defy people to find the difference between George Santos and Donald Trump. Santos ripped off charities. So did Trump. Trump had to pay a giant fine in New York, because he ran a fake charity. He would take people's money who thought they were contributing to good causes like cancer and helping kids who are underprivileged, etc. And he'd go buy giant portraits of himself. Even George Santos never did anything that absurd and silly and over the top. Imagine if Santos had bought a 6-foot picture of himself. Everybody make that joke 24 hours a day. Trump actually did that twice with his charity, and had to disband it because he's a criminal. He started a fake university, had to pay a $25 million fine for that. Well, to be fair, Santos is a really bad guy because he ripped off veterans. So did Donald Trump. Donald Trump on several instances, including in his charity, ripped off veterans. And what did he do? He got rewarded for it. So disgrace is not a thing anymore, especially if you're a right winger. It is not only not frowned upon, oftentimes it's celebrated. And so hard to blame Santos and say, wow, I can't, he's so outrageous. He's so different than other politicians. And by the way, Trump and Santos are flagrant and flamboyant liars. But it's not like everybody else in that building isn't telling lies 24/7. Oh no, I'm not doing this for my donor. I really think that drug prices should be higher because that's good for America and my voters. They're all liars. What difference does it make?
Yeah, the only real difference to me between Trump and George Santos is that Santos is like 40 years younger than Trump. That's like kind of the only difference. And one of the biggest similarities between the two of them is that them becoming official members of public life, one president, one member of Congress, is ultimately what struck their downfall, brought them into the spotlight too much to where the feds got involved. Not that they wouldn't have before, not that Trump hasn't been sued literally thousands of times. But yeah, everywhere you look at it, they're just as ridiculous, and they both make things up for absolutely no reason. Maybe George Santos has him a little bit beat on that. But then again, Trump has like 40 more years, so that probably isn't true. But my favorite part of that whole thing was when, Santos was like, I spoke to God, God, because God famously loves liars and cheaters. God said, you know what? Go ahead and go to another district and screw over a different set of constituents. Because God famously doesn't care about the little guy. The Republicans think they could just, as long as they put that 3-letter word anywhere, they just sprinkle it on there, then that just legitimizes everything they say. Look at the North Carolina guy, Mark Robinson, that lunatic out there who's running for governor. God this, God that. So that justifies the hatred. But
yeah.
This is America.
And look, last thing, the main offense of George Santos and why he got kicked out of Congress and is being pursued criminally is that he misused campaign funds for all the stuff we've been talking about, Botox, et cetera. That's exactly what Donald Trump did. Donald Trump is also under criminal investigation in New York for misusing campaign funds for campaign finance violations. He had the one that he had with the porn star. He has issue. That's the one he's being charged on because he did hush money and etc. But then using the campaign funds, as soon as he started getting it from suckers from MAGA, and then to be fair to the MAGA guys, they didn't know that he was a crook back then. They know now. So and they're still giving to him. So that's for whatever it's worth. But back then they give him the money, and then you know what he did? He started charging them for rent at Trump Tower because he was using it for his campaign office. It didn't look like he was using it at all. He took up a giant amount of space and increased the rent by 4x. Come on, you think rent went up by 4 times as soon as he started using campaign funds instead of his own money? No, he's at least as big a criminal and a fraud as George Santos. But since he was already in power, half the country loves him. Yeah. All right, we got to take a break, guys. Yeah. When we come back, more hilarious news for you guys. All right, back during a social break here. I'm gonna go to Super Chat first. Lots of love for Ray out there. Christina Lisa Brown writes in, happy Friday, TYT fam. Love the panel action, Jackson, the general, and the ray of sunshine. Long live TYT. The nation and the world need you to speak truth to power. Don't give up, Cenk. Hashtag 2028. Oh, please, please, I'm begging you. Okay, but give up. Oh, there's no way in the world. There's no way I'm gonna do that. Operation Hope is next. We're gonna get caught trying again. And soon we'll get caught winning. Fritza Jock writes in, this is bittersweet indeed. Congratulations, Slavana, and you will be missed terribly. Hello, Snackson, and you too, Cenk. Okay.
Hello.
Lady F&T, along similar lines, Slavana, I'm gonna miss you, girl. But I wish you much love and prosperity. Cenk, you had me in tears last night. Katie Britt is a scary bitch. Hello, Mr. Snackson, yummy, yum, yum.
These are awesome.
Hal Blair, you writes in, Ravana, the Hermana, my favorite videos are the one where you, JR, and Cenk destroy Dave Chappelle for his anti-trans special, and the one where you and Cenk made fun of Tim Pool saying, I'm single, but it's definitely not me. We'll miss you. So those are all lovely. And then we got more from our members. Wolf Dragon Donna says, Ray, I'm really gonna miss you. Your brilliant coverage and perspectives, and especially your perpetual chuckle. You are joy and kindness personified. I wish you all the best in your law career. I was a legal assistant in both legal aid offices and private firms for decades, so I know what you're getting into. My best advice, keep smiling. Oh, okay, that's fair. American Ux says, I'm so sorry to see Ray leave. She's the best. 36 Chambers Dragon says, Big Cenk with Snackson, led by a wonderful ray of sunshine to help us through more dark and ridiculous news today. Great power panels. This is definitely going to be a great weekend. Yes! Thank you, guys. Collective Miscellaneous says, congratulations, Ray. That's exciting news. We'll definitely miss you, but wish you all the best in your new career. Don't be a stranger. Everybody doubles down on that. Wang Jun, congratulations, Ray. I'm sad to see my favorite Rebel HQ host go, but I'm happy for you in your new career. Unlikely Progressive says, hey Cenk, thanks for my gift. I joined because I believe in TYT, but that was a nice little bonus. Yeah, we gave gifts to folks who joined in a certain period. We're not playing, and it's a fun little gift. I like it. So thank you for writing in with that. I appreciate it. Speaking of me appreciating things, Art Guy wrote in, Cenk Uygur, king of the dad jokes. Well, yes! I wanted to be king of something, so there you go. Yes, okay, we'll talk more about that later in the show. We'll be back. Back on TYT, Jank, Ray, and Snackson. Ramiru, Tempest, the Slime Dragon gifted YouTube membership, and Lady F and T gifted 5. You guys are amazing. Hit the join button below to join them and help us do this show. Ray, what's next?
Right, so an app I spend way too much of my time on is now under attack. So let's get into this next story. Lawmakers on the House Energy and Commerce panel of Communication and Technology have been buried, in my opinion, rightfully so, in an avalanche of calls from very, very, very angry TikTok users. That's because they've been preparing to vote on a bill that would force ByteDance, which is the owner of TikTok, to sell the app to an American owner or face bans in US app stores. Now, this onslaught of fury was actually organized by ByteDance itself. According to the Wall Street Journal, as lawmakers prepared to consider the legislation, TikTok users saw notifications urging them to complain to their House representatives about the bill. Then the app let people call the representatives with a few presses of buttons. So, well, let lawmakers and their staffers describe what happened next in their own words, some of them quite interesting. One House Republican aide describes the experience to Rolling Stone as a, quote, nonstop barrage of phone calls and messages this week from shrieking teens. A fascinating way to describe your constituents. But of course, they did so anonymously, so not gonna feel the wrath of that. They continued on, considering the call volume, you'd think we were trying to repeal and replace Obamacare again, which is an absolutely amazing thing for a Republican staffer to admit was deeply unpopular and an affront to the will of the American people that they were supposedly representing. But of course, the fury is not limited just to, as they describe them, shrieking teens. Here's a tweet from Olivia Beavers. One House GOP staffer tells me it's so bad, our phones have not stopped ringing. They're teenagers and old people saying they spend their whole day on the app and we can't take it away. And there was even some collateral damage in this crusade. Democratic lawmaker also tells Rolling Stone that though they aren't even on the House committee leading this charge, my office has been getting a ton of angry phone calls on this matter. It's pretty crazy. I mean, people love TikTok. But ironically, though, this campaign backfired and made the lawmakers even more determined to pass the bill. Committee member Representative John Curtis said he didn't like that a Chinese-owned app tried to, quote, manipulate a response from its users. He said that feeling solidified unanimous support for the bill. Another representative stated, I think TikTok made our case for us today. Which, by the way, these are representatives bragging about the fact that they're completely ignoring the will of their constituents who've been calling them to voice their opinions. And they're actually saying that hearing what their constituents wanted made them further support the exact opposite of that. And yesterday, the bill unanimously passed the committee 50-0. Now, Steve Scalise stated he would bring the legislation to the House floor for a vote next week. And the bill even has the support of the Biden White House, which ironically just joined TikTok a few weeks ago. Biden said today that he would sign the bill if it passed both chambers, which I think is a fascinating approach considering, we just learned that the Biden campaign has been avoiding doing events at college campuses where they would actually be reaching out to young voters because they're afraid of being protested, and that Biden is, hemorrhaging vote support from young voters. So then to come out and support a bill that would ban an app that is mostly used by young people, that is beloved by young people, is such a fascinating strategy. In my opinion, it just shows such a disconnect with the voters he needs to reach out to and how little he actually cares about their interests. But I don't know, what do you guys think about this? Should we ban TikTok?
It's insanity. Ironically, it turns out Trump now agrees with us. We'll get to that in a second. So first off, I love what they're doing on TikTok and calling these Congress people. So number one, I love any kind of activism, and I encourage that, and we try to do that both on the Young Turks account on TikTok and Instagram, and also mine, Cenk Uygur Official on TikTok and Cenk Uygur on Instagram. We try to. I did this on the campaign, and we'll do this at the Young Turks going forward. Collect all of your input, your memes, your videos, and then spread them out as well, because they're excellent hubs for activism. And that's exactly what TikTok is doing here. And guys, this particular tactic, calling your Congress people, I would love to tell you that that's effective and it's empowering to do it. I don't want to discourage you from doing it. I like it a lot for the reason I'm about to say. But is it going to work in any particular case? No, because they don't care about their constituents at all. That's the heart of the problem. They're so corrupt. The only way they would pay attention to you is if you bribe them. I mean, these are legalized bribes called campaign contributions. And in fact, that is part of the issue here. There's a lot of competitors that TikTok has that would love to shut TikTok down. That's part of the problem that they're facing. Another problem that they're facing is that they are galvanizing younger voters. And younger voters are not in favor of the Republican Party or the Democratic Party. And that's why you're seeing these unanimous votes against TikTok in Congress. And it doesn't, and they just told you, we haven't gotten this many calls in years and years and years. And then they all vote against you. Why? Because they don't care about you. They don't care about, not because you're young, not because you're on TikTok, but because you're a voter. They couldn't care less about voters. All they care about is the money, the money, the money. And now TikTok has young people that are so progressive. They don't like the Democratic Party at all. They hate what they're doing in Gaza. They hate the corruption, et cetera, and they loathe the Republicans and the anti-gay, anti-trans, anti-black, all the different things that the Republicans do. So both parties hate TikTok, but you morons, it isn't TikTok that's doing it. It's that young people are actually progressive and they're expressing themselves on TikTok. If you took TikTok away, they aren't then magically gonna be like, you know what? I kind of love the Republican Party. Ooh, the Democratic Party. Oh, more promises without delivering. Oh yeah, now that you took TikTok away, I'm all good. No, that's not how you work. How it works, you schmucks. But people who are politicians can't help themselves, including Joe Biden. I mean, what kind of a thing is it to say, oh, I'm gonna ban you guys, and here's my new TikTok channel. Cookies. I mean, make up your mind. You look ridiculous when you say you're going to ban it and you start a TikTok channel. Jackson.
I think realistically, it's too late to try. Any talk about banning TikTok is just hollow words. It's too big now. There's too many people on it. It's not even just that people express themselves, but businesses are relying on that. Operations of all different kinds are relying on that people get messages across to, and that actually adds to the economy. And when you have a conversation about security concerns, yeah, that's absolutely legitimate. But the thing is that people can push messages and influence anywhere on any platform, Facebook, Twitter, well, X now, but that the Elon Musk did. Now I'm thinking about Elon, back on subject. Instagram, any other platform that you use, any influence can be pushed. I mean, flat earthers all around the world, you might have one flat earther in your community, but because of technology, because of social media now, there's millions of them that can link up. So like, if you ban TikTok, and I'm not even talking about from a principle standpoint, I'm just talking about, is this gonna work? If you ban TikTok, well, now you still have all these other platforms and all these other avenues to spew your, the communist threat or whatever it may be. So I just think that now, again, realistically, the amount of resources, how much it would really take to do this, I mean, it could happen, but I would be really surprised if America banned TikTok when there's so much money that's made on it. So I think it's just a bunch of yapping.
Yeah. Hopefully it's just a hollow threat, but I guess we'll have to see. Cenk mentioned though that Donald Trump has changed his tune when it comes to TikTok. So let's talk a little bit about that, because they're not just, these lawmakers and Republican lawmakers specifically are not just going to be facing pressure from young people. Apparently, they're also going up against Donald Trump, who posted this last night on True Social. He wrote, "If you get rid of TikTok, Facebook and Zuckerschmuck will double their businesses. I don't want Facebook, who cheated in the last election, doing better. They are a true enemy of the people," which is a massive change of heart for Donald Trump. Because let's just quickly flash back to July of 2020. This was posted. President Trump told Air Force One press pool he plans to ban TikTok from operating in the United States. As far as TikTok is concerned, we're banning them from the United States, Trump said. And that was just one moment in his long crusade against TikTok while he was president. But there is a potential reason for this change, because according to the New York Magazine, conservative hedge fund manager Jeff Yass has threatened to axe donations to any Republicans who support a TikTok ban or divestment, which naturally is because he has a $33 billion stake in the company. But how that connects to Trump is that last week, Yass visited Mar-a-Lago, where Trump praised him as fantastic. Media reports touted that Yass could potentially contribute generously to Trump's campaign. So of course, that's one side of it. I mean, there's also the potential that the people around him have told him that young people love TikTok, and if they're trying to win the votes of young people, he might just come out and pretend that he's pro TikTok and capitalize on this moment where President Biden has failed tremendously. So definitely a big switch up there from Donald Trump. But did this surprise you guys to see him suddenly in TikTok's corner?
Yeah, no, not really, because first of all, Donald Trump changed his position on everything, and he'll change it back. He's fickle, and it depends on who's paying him and bribing him and all that stuff. So when this guy comes in and says, "Hey, I'll give you money if you are now in favor of TikTok," he says, "Yes, Queen." So of course, nothing surprising about that. And I look, they're politicians, so they're for TikTok one minute, they're against TikTok another minute, and it depends on what their advantage is. And so Biden probably didn't like TikTok because it drives people to know how bad a lot of his policies are. On the other hand, when he thinks he can get young voters by going on TikTok, all of a sudden he's in favor of TikTok. And then the minute his donors want him to shut it down, after the election's over, he'll go back to shutting it down. So they're giant hypocrites, and that's why the people on TikTok are doing this outreach to Congress and telling them, giving them a piece of their mind. And it's a great start to activism, and I think TikTok could do, people on TikTok could do a lot more, because we have to stop talking about it as if TikTok is a human being that makes decisions. It's a corporation. It wants to profit, maximize profit. And the way that it does that is it gives people an outlet, and that outlet is a positive thing. I agree with Jackson that of course you gotta be careful to make sure that the Chinese government is not getting our information. When we want warrantless wiretapping, we want it only to be our government.
Right. That's only our business. You know what I'm saying? If we're gonna if we're gonna cross civil lines, and let us do that ourselves. But yeah, no, it's not surprising at all. Like you said, Trump flip-flops on everything, including the reversal of Roe. He started off saying, "Man, that's a bit too far," which every indication in the world indicates that that's one of the biggest political mistakes ever, at least in modern times, is actually doing that. But now, he's taking credit for it, because of him, which in a lot of ways is true, because he was president, he got those three people on that bench. So, go ahead and keep on taking credit for it. But yeah, it's not surprising whatsoever. Trump wakes up and just says things. That's what he does.
I like that description. Trump wakes up and says things. They don't have to make sense. They don't have to connect to one another. They don't have to be true. He just says things. All right, guys, we got to take another break. When we come back, two terrible people get into a fight, Candace Owens and Rabbi Shmuley Batayek. Who's right? There actually is a very clear answer. We'll tell you when we come back. All right, so guys, number one, our members get to vote on a lot of things now because you're our community and we're trying to create an oasis of sanity and decency. So we're having you vote on our next emblem for the campaign that we're doing this year, Riders in the Storm. So it's got the tattered TYT flag, basically surviving the storm that this industry's in. Another digital media company just shut down 2 days ago. So we weren't lying, we're not playing with you. Situation in this industry is pretty terrible. Anyway, you could vote at tyt.com/join. I'm sorry, at tyt.com. You could do YouTube community or on Discord, but you do have to be a member. So just either hit the join button below to vote on which one it should be, or go to tyt.com/join. And while you're going to things, don't forget our app. It's gotten updated. It's got all the polls, the petitions, everything else. It's a great way to watch us on the go. So make sure you're getting that. And while you're on the go, check out Dr. Richie on SiriusXM, Urban View. That's Sundays at 1 o'clock Eastern. He's got a great show there as well. And obviously he does Indisputable here at TYT. All right, in our members section, first of all, JFitz007, thank you for the contribution. You're awesome, we appreciate you. Now, let's go to some of the folks that wrote in. Textan wrote in and said, if they're going to ban Chinese products, the shelves at Walmart would be empty. 2 Goodyear tires and some Slim Jims. That's about right. In fact, including Make America Great Again hats made in China. Cedar Goddess says politicians want to ban TikTok because it's politicizing young people and letting them organize. So of course politicians are going to double down when TikTok itself organizes young people to take political action. As awesome as TikTok's campaign is, it was doomed to be counterproductive. But it's not counterproductive. It's just the people in Congress are indifferent to it. As long as there isn't cash attached to something, you can't get a politician to pay attention to it. So they're like, oh, we got a lot of voter complaints. We'll just trick them later with ads like Adam Schiff did, where he got good people to vote for Steve Garvey, the Republican, and kicked out the 2 people who would actually help them in California. So we don't need no stinking voters. Who cares what their opinion is? Where's the money? Where's the money? That's your average politician. Lost Mama 08 says, hi, I wanted to say congrats, Ray. It's a shame I'm too old for Snackson. Thanks, Mr. Jenk, for getting caught trying. And I received a letter today from Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. I got all my student loans paid off. I've been crying, so much pressure is off my shoulders. Love my TYT family. You keep me sane and informed. Look, I tell you guys this all the time. As much as I say things against Joe Biden, credit where credit is due. If you got your loan paid off, you probably should vote for him. on TYT. Cynical gifted 5 subs on Twitch. Jen Hampton upgraded, which you can also do through the join button. We love you for that. Thank you, Jen. Ray's got the next story.
I do, and unfortunately, we have to talk about one of my least favorite people in right-wing media, because Daily Wire commentator Candace Owens has gone on yet another anti-Semitic tirade. This time, she's accused in her words, ring of Jewish people in Hollywood and DC of blackmailing and even killing people, then manipulating the media to cover up their crimes. Now, on today's episode of her show, Candace Owens went on a long-winded conspiracy theory-laden monologue where she claimed that a lawsuit against Diddy reveals a ring of people who blackmail artists and cover up murders. She also stated that the people who allegedly conspired to hijack Michael Jackson's will are all Jewish. And then she went on to connect those celebrities with Kanye West, someone who she's long defended because of his anti-Semitism, not in spite of it. So let's take a look at that.
These claims keep coming up too often in Hollywood for me to be comfortable with it, right? We saw this, obviously, it's not just now the Diddy lawsuit, it's not just now Michael Jackson. We also have seen these claims with Kanye West, notoriously, obviously, when he tweeted out, "I'm about to go DEFCON 3 on some Jews," and the media freaked out, and people in the Jewish community were understandably very scared, not knowing what he meant. And I very much abstained from speaking much about the issue because people were so emotional that people couldn't hear, even if I had shared. And even when Kanye did share that he was speaking about specific people, he actually named some of those individuals. He shared personal text messages of a friend of his, a personal trainer to the stars, who again happens to be Jewish, who was threatening to put him in the hospital.
Yeah, surely the guy who said, "I love Hitler," wasn't being anti-Semitic. We all just misunderstood his intent. But that wasn't all that she did in her anti-Semitic episode today. She also claimed, again, as I mentioned, that a ring of Jewish people control Hollywood, the government, and the media, which is about as anti-Semitic as you can get. Here's that.
What I believe is something that should be explored is whether or not what's happening is that just like within all communities, there are gangs, right? Gangs can form, we understand this. In the Black community, we've got the Bloods and we've got the Crips. Well, imagine if the Bloods and the Crips were doing horrific things, murdering people, controlling people with blackmail. And then every time a person spoke out about it, the Bloods and the Crips would call those people racist, would get the media to say those people were racist. But what if that is what is happening right now in Hollywood, if there is just a very small ring of specific people who are using the fact that they are Jewish to shield themselves from any criticism? It's food for thought, right? And I think, again, there have been enough people that are speaking out about a ring in Hollywood, also a ring potentially in DC, that we should start to ask those questions. All of us, Black, Spanish, Jewish, Chinese, Japanese, all Americans should want answers because this appears to be something that is quite sinister.
You know, this is far and away not the first time that Candace Owens has, expressed this conspiracy theory on the Daily Wire. And I just think it goes to show that how Ben Shapiro doesn't actually care that much about these issues he purports to, because he's let this woman go on severely anti-Semitic tirades on his network time and time again, with very little pushback and just a little bit of shade thrown in private parties, but not publicly. I mean, this whole thing is insane, obviously untrue, and she's just capitalizing on the truth of people criticizing Israel being cast as anti-Semitic and then trying to apply that to actual instances of rabid anti-Semitism. What did you guys think? I mean, this was so gross.
So this story involves two clowns. Rabbi Shmuley Boteach is a grade A clown. And he calls anyone who even slightly criticizes the Israeli government anti-Semitic. By the way, then later defends anti-Semites, depending on where his bread is buttered, apparently. And generally terrible person. He's accused me of being an anti-Semite. The first sentence in an interview that we were doing together, I didn't even know what the hell he was referring to. So like, there's almost no chance that I'd be on Rabbi Shmuley's side on anything. God damn it, Candace, what did you do? Now you're putting me on Shmuley's side, okay? Because of these two clowns, Candace is more wrong, let's put it that way. So it doesn't get, it's like textbook anti-Semitism to say there's a ring of Jewish people that secretly control society, media, DC, etc. I don't know a trope that is more anti-Semitic than that one. So totally, utterly indefensible. Guys, there's a giant difference between saying the government of a country is doing something wrong, like the government of Israel. Can they be criticized? Of course, right? Can lobbyists for Israel, AIPAC, Democratic Majority for Israel, etc., or a lobbyist for Saudi Arabia or any other country be criticized? Of course, right? Can specific Jewish people, Turkish people, black people, etc., do things that are wrong? Of course. But when you say there's a cabal of Jews secretly running things, that is exactly what's gotten Jewish people killed throughout history, and it's maniacally wrong. It's ridiculously wrong. That's not how the world works at all. That's exactly how ignorant people think. So I can go on and on about how wrong Candace Owens is here, but she's mainly wrong for putting me on the same side as Shmuley. Okay, kidding about that. She's definitely mainly wrong for being a wild, horrible anti-Semite. All right, Jackson.
Wasn't that the interview where, like, as soon as it dropped, he was like, "Hey, everybody, just so you know, Shank is an anti-Semite, and he named his company the Young Turks and all of that." I think I remember that one. Like, just so everyone knows, like, yeah, that was pretty crazy. But I continue to hold that Candace Owens is an incredibly boring and uninteresting person because she's just so sour about everything. How predictable is that? Everything sucks. Everything that's fun is just horrible and terrible. This woman is 34 years old, right? And her content primarily consists of her posting TikToks made by some 19-year-old girl or some 22-year-old woman making jokes about her dating life. And she's like, you see, this is what women are like now. I mean, she's literally said, like, all of society's modern problems are because of women. Like, she criticized people for liking music. It's just like, wow, you're really, really boring. I don't want to hang out with you. And it's a shame that she's that easy to talk down about, because it's like she's just not a serious person. And the reason that Ben Shapiro still has her on there is because she makes him a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one last thing here, guys. Look, for the folks who don't understand how the world works, it runs on a thing called money, okay? And it doesn't care what race or religion or ethnic background you are at all. So I once had David Duke on the show to understand where the hatred was coming from and why he liked Donald Trump so much. That was back in 2015. But he was obsessed with the Jews. And for every Jewish banker or media person he named, I named someone Irish. Okay, but there's no like conspiracy theories about how the Irish are secretly controlling the world, etc. It's nonsense. The people who control the world are generally private equity companies, hedge funds, etc., that are on Wall Street because they have access to money. And if you look at their boards or you look at their partners, you know what you find? Muslims, Jews, Christians, Hindus, atheists, etc. People of all backgrounds, because money doesn't care what your religion is. And so the idea that it's only, what do you think that all the other rich people in the world, including the Saudis and the Russians and everybody's like, oh no guys, even though I have a lot of money and power, we gotta let the Jews run the world. They would never say that. That's insanity. So all of these conspiracy theories and tropes are maniacal, and you have to be completely ignorant to believe them, which is exactly what Candace Owens is. All right, we are massively out of time. I just decided to blow past the end of the hour. Okay, but we do have to take a break here and come back for the members. We do have some hilarious stories, including one that if you laugh at, you might get exhausted. It's a fascinating story of bosses that are too funny. I'm not saying anything. I haven't said a word, okay? TYT.com/join or hit the join button below, and we'll see you members there.